Right, okay, so I'm going to pick up from where I left off yesterday with with this video recording. And yesterday I left off, well, essentially the video, I kind of messed up the controls on the video, so it ended up being a situation where the screens I was showing were completely irrelevant to what I was explaining, and we missed quite a lot of half the tips. In my opinion, the tips that were actually missed out were probably the more important tips. So I'm just going to go through those again very quickly. First thing I'm going to do is obviously disconnect this fan. You can see how quiet that's gotten. And I'm going to reconnect the camera. There we go. So one of the important tips, now that you can actually see the screen, one of the important tips that was missed from yesterday was it's just loading the camera up. Let that finish spinning. Yeah, I can't go into settings yet, but it was the tip for what do you call it, hotkeys, where you can quickly snap between stuff. And all I've done here is from the main page, I've gone into settings, and then under settings you've got hotkeys, and as you can see you've got a series of important commands. So you've got filter commands, which are headed there, and then there's a heading here for announcement, and you'll see the how do I put it, you'll see these scenes that we've set up here. So you can see intro, you can see the K-Dizzle, you can see the main cam, and you can see this script, which was meant to be for scripture, an intro clip, etc. And you've also got what we're feeding our volume through is the mic aux 2, and again I'll show you all of this when we go through the actual setup. But these are hotkeys that you can set up for doing different things on different scenes, if you wanted to. So it'll give you a few options underneath that are relevant to your scene, depending on what you select. As you can see under main cam, we've got quite a few things that we set up yesterday. So we've got the logo and so forth, and if you wanted to toggle these things on and off, you can just set up a key as easy as just typing in a letter. So you can put H in there, for example. Sorry for the noise from my clothes. My mic is actually clipped to a t-shirt that I'm wearing, so it will make a little bit of a rustle every now and again, so apologies for that. But yeah, you could type H there and hit OK, and if you wanted to switch to that scene, you would just hit H, and all of a sudden it would automatically switch across to that scene. So obviously I'm not going to hit transition, because last time I hit transition, what ended up happening is the rest of the video, all you could see was that, and you could no longer see the screen that I was working with. So obviously today I'm not going to make that mistake. So yeah, bear in mind, one of the things we spoke about yesterday is about hotkeys, and it just makes it easier for you to switch between. And I'd mentioned yesterday on the video that you can have, say, 3 cameras set up or 4 cameras set up, and you could call camera 1, so for example, let's just say for argument's sake, you've set it up in such a way that each camera has its own scene. That's how I would do it personally, because it would allow me to have different things linked to that particular camera. So if I wanted my announcements to be actually not announcements, say I had the main camera facing the actual church, and I wanted to put specific things on that camera that I know would be relevant. So i.e. when the scripture is being read, I'd also like to have a picture of the actual pastor who's reading the scripture. So I'd link my scripture source to, in fact, let me just come off the screen. Yeah, so if I had the main camera and this is the one that was facing the pastor, and I want my scripture to be linked to that particular scene, I would put a source for scripture there, and that's where I'd dump all my scriptures. But if I wanted also a specific logo to appear in a particular place on that particular screen, like up here in the top right hand corner, which is a good place to put a logo, whilst the person appears somewhere in the middle of the screen there, then again that would be a really good thing to do. However, if my next scene was meant to be a flyer for the church, for example, that's used during announcements, it may not be appropriate to have a logo on it, and it may not be appropriate to have that logo in the top right hand corner. You might want to remove it because obviously the flyer is going to be your logo for the church. So for that specific scene, I'd want no logo on there, and I would set it up specific for a different scene. That way, if I'm doing something and I went to my hotkeys and I wanted to activate the main camera with H, and I wanted to activate, say, the intro with I, it's literally as easy as doing that, and hit OK. So if I wanted to switch between the intro and the main camera, I would just literally hit H and I all day long, and it would switch between the two. Oh yeah, so there's nothing on the actual intro clip, which is why when I hit I, it didn't send anything across, which is fine. Obviously, when you actually do it, because I remember yesterday when we were setting up, we were talking about the actual logo and having a picture, etc. Whereas in this case, I don't have any pictures or anything on this particular laptop, so I don't have anything to set up for the intro. But you know, if I wanted to switch the main camera, I could hit H, and bear in mind when I hit H, it sent the camera to the preview screen. If I wanted to hit H and send it to the actual live screen, whereas I think in OBS it doesn't call it live program, it calls it the program screen, but obviously that's the screen where everything is showing live. Underneath the hotkeys, if I go to the main camera, okay, you have two symbols here. You've got show shared with hide. Hang on. Yeah, because one of these is meant to be for, I'm just trying to hover over it. One of these is meant to hide it, and one of them is meant to show it. So if, say, for example, you wanted to transition between and you wanted to take one off, and obviously that's going to leave a blank screen, a black screen in the background, which is fine. But you wanted to take one off and put one on. One of these is meant to do that, so one of them is meant to hide it, and one of them is meant to add it on. So you have a sort of transition. And I don't know if you've noticed, but there are transitions in between. Hang on, let me show you. There are transitions here, and you can choose what transition you want, whether it's a cut or a fade. So at the minute it's on cut, and it just does that. If you went to fade, and then you transitioned, you see that it fades in and out. So if you wanted to have a situation where one of those options toggled hiding it, it would either fade into the hide or cut into the hide, and then you'd hit the next button and then it would fade in or cut into the to the next camera, which kind of gives a little bit of a transition in between. You don't have to set it up that way. You could literally just have a button that just sends a hotkey, sorry, that just sends it to straight showing. And that's entirely up to yourself on what you want to do. But yeah, it's entirely up to you how you want to customize this, but just always know that you can set up hotkeys to pretty much do whatever you want to do. Well, I say whatever you want to do, to show whatever you want to show, or do whatever it is you want to do. It will do that for you, so you don't have to constantly keep messing around with different options, etc. Just set up a hotkey and it does it for you. Now, with regards to let's transition that back. Brilliant. Right. So with regards to that's that. The other thing we spoke about when the camera went off was with regards to the words on the actual screen, and I spoke about how you would make the words scroll if you wanted to, or how you'd hide them and make them reappear. And again, I'm using the mouse pad on the laptop, but this is where the words are supposed to appear. Now, down here under sources, and today you'll be able to see it, that was supposed to appear in scripture, but you'll see next to the I, and this is actually a symbol of an I, it's got a line through it. If I take that line out, the words will reappear. Now, I think yesterday I spoke about a particular scenario where you would want to hide words quickly and then make them reappear. Say you put the words on, but you know they weren't ready or it was too early or whatever. You could, rather than deleting this whole thing and starting all over again, say we transition this across, and you're on main camera, um, and you wanted the words to appear, you could make them appear there and then transition that across, and that would go through. If you want them to disappear, again, you hit that icon, transition that across, and it would disappear. Now you can do all of this again through the hotkeys to save you having to click around and move the mouse around, etc. It's entirely up to yourself what is easier and what isn't, you know. But you've always got that option there to do so. If you wanted to remove that because you want to change words, for example, very quickly, and you started to show it, you can just quickly hide it, do what you need to do. Likewise, if you have a logo set up on the screen and you want to temporarily take that logo off, you would just go, because you're already on the main camera scene. No matter what happens, this will be showing you, the preview will be showing you what's going out there. And say you had the logo in the top right hand corner, you wanted to move it around, but you want to do so discreetly. You don't want people to see you moving the actual logo on the actual screen. You just hide the logo, move the logo across from the left to the right, and then once you've made your change, reveal the logo and then transition it. Again, you can have a hotkey to hide and reveal and a hotkey for transitioning, and you can do it that way. You don't have to stick with using the mouse every single time. So I'm just going to re-reveal these words very quickly because there was something else we spoke about yesterday. Now I'm just going to transition back to here. So yeah, the option to hide and reveal is there, by the way, so you can see. So that's all I did, is I just did that and I hit transition and it transitioned. And then when I removed it, I just hit the eye and I hit transition. And then that's when you saw the words reappear back on the screen. And obviously when I was fiddling with the logo, I did the same thing, but there is no logo at the moment, so you won't be able to actually physically see that on this video. So yeah, no, the other thing I wanted to speak about is the actual transitioning. Now, you already know that if you want to stick words on this particular page, how you would do it is under sources, you'd hit the plus sign, and then you'd go to text, free type, and then you'd name whatever it is. If it's going to be a warning, for example, warning, then you'd hit OK, and then you would type whatever the warning is, danger, fire, and then if you want to do colors, you can. You know, there's all the options there. If you want to do fonts and all that stuff, it's all there, sizes and blah blah blah. That's all up to you. Backgrounds, you name it. Now, obviously I've got my warning message there. Let me just make this a little bit bigger. Danger, fire, and then I want to transition that across. Just for now, before I transition it through, one of the things I spoke about yesterday is changing what happens in the actual box. So to create this, you went to the plus sign and you went to free text and you typed it in. And there are parameters within that allows you to actually just create what you want to create in terms of adding words. What you can, once you've created it and it's on there, to do something with what you've created, as you already know, if you want to highlight something, you click on it and it will put the box in red. So you'd select the thing first, make sure it's highlighted, then you'd right click. When you right click, you now have the option to go to filters, and when you go into filters, you get additional options. Now these options relate to what's already on the screen. So you've created your words, you've typed them up, they're on the screen, you've put them where you want them, you've made the box as big or as small as you want. But these options now pertain to what do you want them to be doing on the actual screen. Now OBS has gone with the term filters. In all fairness, I don't believe that this is an appropriate term, or you know, the most sort of term that people would be able to relate to. Um, but once you started using OBS, you'll find that it does this with a lot of things, especially with, like, for example, your picture quality. Um, the good thing about that is on our phones now, we have Facebook and da 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 da. Facebook actually refers to the different ways in which we can change our pictures and videos as filters, and I think Snapchat does the same thing, and various other things. I don't have all the social media, I've only got Facebook, but I think Twitter may do the same thing, and it may refer to it as filters as well. So with the picture image that you're getting on your camera, and I'll go through that in a moment, you would see the word filter and you think, does that mean what I think it is? Yes, it does. But also, when you're talking about the words that you've just put on the screen, the term filter also applies to that. So you can filter, so to speak, and I'm doing the quotes with my hand, you can filter your words as well. You can filter your logo, you can filter whatever. You just right click on the actual item and then you go into filter. And I'll show you that again one more time just so that you can see it. So I'm on the screen, I click on the words I want, and then I go right to the bottom here, and you can see it says filter. So I hit filter. Now on this screen, again, in keeping in line with how OBS works, you've got the plus and the minus, and obviously this lets you move up and down depending on how many items you have in there. So yeah, so you go into the plus sign, and then you've got all your different filters here. So you've got a crop pad. See, I don't know what most of these things do because I don't really use them. The one I like to use the most is the scroll feature. And once you've selected the filter in the right hand box, you get to interact with what you've got, and you get to interact with options. So you can limit the height, you can limit the width, but you can also limit the scroll speed. Now our words aren't stacked on top of each other, they're actually going side by side. And there's something we forgot to do here, which I'll do for you in a moment. But the option would be to move the bar, because obviously we're going to do horizontal, we're not scrolling vertically. But we move the bar in the direction we want the words to, the direction we read. So in this case from left to right, so we're moving the bar from left to right. And as you can see, the more we increase the bar, the more it's actually filtering through. So yeah, so at the minute it's filtering, I keep saying filtering, scrolling. At the minute it's scrolling to the right, and you can see fire, danger, fire, danger. Now the thing we forgot to do, which I mentioned yesterday, is to put a space in between, or to put spaces in between the words where the sentence is supposed to end. So I'll close this for now because we've got our scroll happening on there, and I'll come back to this here, and this time I go into properties here. Then this will then give me the options. It helps if I'm selecting the right thing. So I go into properties here, and this will then give me the options. And I just go here where I've typed that in and just put nine spaces in between. And then as you can see on the main screen, and also over here in the preview, you can see how far the words are before they reappear. So I'm just going to add a few more spaces, a few more spaces, a few more spaces. And one thing you'll find is the words are getting smaller and smaller, but you can now see that there's a bigger gap in between the words reappearing on the screen. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit OK on that, and we can see over here that it will show the words with an excessive amount of gap on either side, depending on how I've set it up. And as you can see, that's a lot more nicer to see, because it's got a nice transition in between the words, whereas before it was just one after the other. It's a bit of a pain to read. So yeah, you can mess around with that, but that's fine. So that's one option. I'm going to go back into filters very quickly here. Okay, and I'm going to go back into the options we have. There was one in particular I saw that I really wanted to see what it actually does. Oh, the scaling aspect. Okay, man. Okay, this Chrome key, I have no idea what that is. Right, so let's go with magenta. Smoothness, opacity. Now, if I understand opacity, that's the like how faint or see-through the letters are. So I'm gonna just send that down. Just ooh, okay, I can see what's happening. Right. Okay, I'm gonna leave that at 50. And I'm gonna hit close here. Oh, that's right. Yeah, because this is really bold. Whereas that's nice and thing. I'm gonna transition it over just so I can see what it looks like. And before I transition it over, I'm gonna also, whilst it's on the other side, I'm gonna come down to this one, which was the scripture one, and I'm gonna remove it. So I remove it by hitting the, go onto it, hitting the eye icon, and then hitting transition, and then it's no longer on the screen. Yeah, I quite like that, where it's a bit faint, and you can have something not even moving. Let me transition back. Let's go back into filters, go back into, this is not the right one, I want it under warning. So back into filters. So you see how it's like when you've got too much stuff on one scene. It's just excessive. So I like to split it all up so that I know that I'm working with a few options. But again, you customize it the way you want. So I don't want the Chrome key, but I do want this one. And if I bring that back to 0, now you can actually just physically type if you can't be bothered to thing with 0.0. If you just put in 0, it will add the 0.0 for you. I'm going to quickly transition this over. Nice. So you can put a logo on the top right hand corner, and then on the left hand side you can actually write the name of the church and decide how big or how small you want that to be. So I know you can't see what I'm doing here, but I'm going to transition that across. Yeah. So yeah, really nice options. Let me just go back to this. Boom. So yeah, so some interesting options that you have there, and you can see this bar has gotten very, very long, and that's because of the amount of spaces I put in. It counts those as characters as well. So if I wanted to remove them, all I'd need to do is highlight that field, come back into the properties section here, come back to where I've typed it, and then as you can see, as I'm removing all the spaces, the bar is going to be more workable with. So if you want to work with just you know, the words you've typed with no, it's not scrolling any longer, then yeah, you can type that in, and then when you pull this out, you know that this is gonna just pull out the words. Transition that across. Okay, so yeah, this is endless, to be honest, absolutely endless. But yeah, those are some of the options we missed yesterday. Finally, what was the last thing we spoke about that I didn't? I'm just trying to remember from the actual video itself. I'll leave you to have a play around. I mean, this was just meant to show you a few ideas, but I'll do a final recap and just break down, you know, what we've spoken about thus far. And what we've spoken about thus far in these videos is breaking down how OBS works, not necessarily going into detail in specific about the different features, but just the main operational areas of OBS and we spoke about scenes, and just think of your scenes as actual scenes. In a movie, this is the scene, this is the setting, these are the props, this is what's going to be included in this actual scene. So you've got the scene, the overall scene, and then in the sources is what you're including in your actual scene. So your scene could be announcement, your scene could be a flyer, your scene could be a specific camera, your scene could be whatever it is. Then you know, once you've named that scene, um, then you think of your sources as what's going to be in my movie scene, what's going to be in my camera scene, what's going to be in this scene, how am I going to build this scene up, and you just keep working with that. I don't know whether the volume's gone down or whether my ears have just popped, but yeah, you just keep working with that, and you keep building it and building it and building it, and before you know it, you'll have a very strong portfolio. Again, your source is again what you want to have inside your actual scene, depending on how you want to build that up. And you've got endless. I mean, once you start talking about bringing in images, I spoke yesterday about creating, like not just PowerPoints, but creating actual images, going on websites like Fiverr, or getting some creative people in the church to develop stuff, backgrounds, you name it, and then you use those within church when the praise and worship is going on. You could have the words in the I'm using these terms now, in the third quarter, which is kind of like the bottom third of this screen. If you would divide the screen into three sections, you'd put that in the third, and then you could have the words down here, and you could create little PowerPoint slides on the side, and you could just bring those in as and when you need them. And it's as simple as clicking on the thing that you have the words written on. So scripture. In fact, we need to bring that back in. So clicking on scripture. What I'm going to do for now, just for this illustration, is this scroll feature. I'm going to stop it. And look, I stopped it by hitting the eye icon, so I can start it again. Now I could have just gone in here and I could have started tinkering with settings, and that would have just taken a while. But I've come in here and I've hit the eye icon. I'm pretty sure you'd be able to set up a hotkey to be able to stop the scroll and start the scroll as and when you need to do that. So just think about it in that way. So I'm going to stop that for now, and you could have the words down here, and what you could then do is you could excuse me, yeah, you could have the words down here, and to make the change to the next set of words that you want to put in for the song, is all you do is you hit scripture, and then if you hit that icon, the text field is right here. So you can dump the next set of words right in there. What was it? What was the song we did last week? I can't even remember. Okay. And then just hit OK. Hey, where are my words? What have I not done? Am I going crazy? No? I don't know what's happening. The words have disappeared, but that's fine. I'll figure it out later on. But you get a general overview. You've got your scenes. You've got what you want to include within your scenes, and and then underneath here you've got the options for the specific items that you've put in there. And once you've put something in, if you want more options but that are specific to that item, then you can right click on the actual item and you can do things like rename, remove, copy. You can add something else in there. You could go into filters, you can change things. These are things for you to mess around. You can resize. If you've copied something, you can paste it in, depending on what you need. But yeah, pretty much that's pretty much it that we've missed. So I'm gonna stop this video here, and then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna carry on with something that Tino's asked me to do for him, and this is to do with the DL32.